Shout out to the guys over at Menace too. Kris, I thank you for doing this with me. Last year we had just the Michigan guys, and so this year I needed another Buckeye to bring this playoff game in with me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so obviously Georgia being the number one team, everybody thinks that they're just going to come into this game and just obliterate us, just destroy us. And I'm not even totally sure that Georgia has played a team that's been anywhere as talented as us. I mean, they played Tennessee, who decent but completely defenseless. And then other than that, they haven't played any team that's been even close to us talent wise. What do you think about that?
I would agree. It's so funny because Georgia this year, obviously they built the number one resume, whatever, and they showed out against some certain teams. But I'm a big believer in like talent composite and like how that translates to like big time games. And one of the things about Georgia this year, their schedule, at least in a vacuum, if you look at it, they have somehow drawn the schedule in the SEC that avoids all the talent. The most talented team they played may have been Tennessee, and really Tennessee's more of a scheme heavy team rather than like a team that like really thrives on talent. And so because of that, I do think kind of the big bad wolf of Georgia has been overly inflated because we kind of chalk up their close games or their weird games to they weren't engaged or cared. But a couple things like when you are in the SEC and you draw up a schedule and you avoid teams like Bama, the talented teams, it's like okay, like we'll see. Like none of the teams that they've played in terms of talent composite match up to Michigan or Penn State. So that's kind of where I started in terms of like evaluating how much talent they faced. They have faced some well-coached defenses, and those well-coached defenses did give them fits at times. Now it's up to kind of everybody else individually to decide, well, oh, Georgia's not engaged with Kentucky, or oh, Georgia's not engaged with Kent State, or oh, Georgia's not engaged with Mizzou. And if you do that too many times, you can run into a case, like, are the signs there and we're ignoring them? Or is this a team that's supremely talented and gotten away with kind of a quote unquote cakewalk, if you can even call it that, in the SEC?
So going into this game, one thing that I feel like is like the most important thing that we do is stopping the run. Now, obviously, we've got guys like JT who need to show out, Zach Harrison. So I'm pretty proud of the defensive line that we're putting out there. But the thing I think I'm most excited about would have to be the return of Mike Hall Jr. Obviously, he's had a little bit of an injury, and I'm really excited to see his return in this game. How do you think his return will help? And then going from there, do you think that the defensive line will be strong enough to hold off the run? What's your thoughts on that?
It's interesting, like our defensive line versus their O line. Kind of the two things I'll be looking at is obviously Mike Hall in the return. Like, how disruptive can he be? But can he be disruptive while he's gap sound? So that's one of the things. The other additional part that really has my attention is JT versus Broderick Jones. So Broderick is the left tackle, obviously considered going to be a first round draft pick. Yada this, yada that. I went back through and I watched every single snap. Like I've watched all of Broderick, and there's two things here. He's really good against the bull rush, like fantastic. But what he struggles with is violent hands and the speed rush. Now, one of the things that JT doesn't get a ton of credit for is just that violent hands and the speed rush. So in terms of like that matchup in particular, that's one that I think is advantageous and kind of a benefit for Ohio State. The other side of it is a guy that is very good, speed rusher as well. Obviously, it's been an up and down career for him is Zach Harrison. So I'm watching kind of the rotation on that guard because to me, or on that tackle, excuse me, because to me, I think he's one that can be got. Now, I know a lot of PFF people are going to tell me, oh, he only gave up, 7 pressures all year. And I can tell you right now, as someone who's gone back through and counted, I got up to 11 pressures in like 3 games. And I only watched kind of the first half of those games. So I think that number is false. But in terms of the whole defensive line, Georgia runs a lot of gap schemes. They do it really, really well. And so for that, you need everybody to be A, gap sound, and B, disruptive. So I'm really looking forward to seeing our interior of our D line be disruptive. I do think that their center and tackle do have lapses center and right guard have lapses at time in the run game. And then it's kind of going to be about like if Michael Hall is in the backfield and an extra gap is open because he's not being gap sound, will Tommy Eichenberg have fluid enough hips to come up and make a tackle? He struggled with that a little bit against Michigan and kind of when some assignments were missed. But that's kind of where I'm at in terms of our D line versus their O line. So I'm excited for that. But really, Michael Hall being healthy is huge because when he's like 85%, to me, he's one of the top 7 or 8 defensive tackles in the country, if I'm being completely honest.
So from the defensive line to the linebackers, I think the linebackers might possibly have the hardest task in helping with stopping the run, but then also making sure that they're keeping tabs on two elite ends. I mean, they've got Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington. What are your thoughts about the fact that again they do have the hardest task, and do you think that Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg are up for the challenge?
So for me, it's strength on strength. We have not let tight ends like bludgeon us lately, and a lot of that is because kind of a three safety defensive scheme. Obviously, we run a 4-2, is kind of designed to at least limit some of those mismatches because you have an extra DB out there. And the one thing is this: like I don't think Brock Bowers is going to be getting open at the same clip he has against like teams that run a 4-3 because he'll be covered by a guy like Ronnie Hickman. It's going to be about can Hickman stay disciplined in the play action situations and in the advantageous matchups or advantageous chances that Georgia will take on when they kind of get a short field. The bigger issue for me is Darnell Washington because the stuff they do with Darnell is so tricky. He really is the key to the whole offense because he's a guy. He's basically an extra tackle, but he also is going to run a 4-7. So if you bite too hard on anything, he'll be wide open, and then he's tough to tackle. For me at least, like I just want to see guys in good coverage and force Stetson Bennett to make a good throw. Hey, throw the 50-50 balls up to Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. Like I'm okay with that because I don't think for 4 quarters that Stetson Bennett can go blow for blow and make enough tight window throws to kill me. Now, those guys are going to get theirs. But people sit here and act like those two dudes have been able to single-handedly carry this offense to one of the most prolific offenses. That's not the case. They scored under 20 against Kentucky. Like if it was so much of pick your poison type stuff, they would have scored more than 20 against Kentucky. Like if it was so much pick your poison type stuff, then Kent State wouldn't have been able to do what they did with three safeties out there. So I do think it's funny because I think their offense is being greatly inflated by some of the mismatches they get. But if the mismatches were as great as everyone makes it seem like, why is it teams with lesser talent been able to take them away? And additionally, this defense is at least is kind of built to take away tight ends, which is why for the most part we've been in the top echelon, like I believe the top 10 in terms of limiting, tight end productivity. So I mean, even the CJ Dupree kid, the kid that just committed to Alabama, the transfer from Maryland, he only had one catch against us. Now it was for a touchdown, but it was a 7-yard catch on a little corner. Like for the most part, like guys against safeties, like they don't get talked about at all. They get erased to the point where I think Ronnie Hickman's almost become underrated because you never hear his name because he's always locking dudes up and forcing quarterbacks' eyes to move off of that. So that's kind of my alone hot take on the Georgia tight end room.
Some of the biggest frustrations that I've had with the entire season essentially have come from the DBs and more specifically the cornerbacks. Looking back at the Michigan game, obviously a lot of the big plays were given up by them, and they just haven't played up to the level that I think they should. Not that I think that Georgia's receivers are up to that elite level either. So this might be a non-factor. But what are your thoughts on the DBs going into the Georgia game?
Man, I'm not even gonna hold you. Like I'm gonna be super, super blunt. Like I think I keep thinking the same thing low key, but then bro, I keep thinking about Cornelius Johnson streaking down the field. And I'm like, damn, like Lad's better than him. Like Lad's better. Like I don't care what any Michigan dude tells me, bro. Like Lad McConkey is better than that dude. And Rosemary and Jack St. Rosemary, whatever his name is, he's better than that dude too. So for me, at least, like the one that concerns me is number one for Georgia. I call him Baby George Pickens, like real long frame. Should have been a Buckeye to be honest, but we've recruited over him. I mean, the kid is like 6'2", long arms, can snatch the ball. And like one of the things that our corners have kind of had struggles with all year is honestly, bro, they be on highlight tapes. They be getting taken up top. They be getting mossed. And that's the dude, like Jackson Rosemary. That's the dude that really concerns me. I'm not too worried about Lad unless we trot out Cam Martinez. Then I'll be worried about Lad. But really, I want to like go to bed at night feeling good about my corners, but then I just keep thinking about Cornelius freaking Johnson, bro, going crazy against us. So they make me nervous, bro. Like our defense has players everywhere. Like we have dudes, like I swear, bro, we have dudes everywhere. But then in the corner room, it's like, dang, we got a high school safety and a high school receiver out there trying to lock dudes up. And then we got Cam Martinez, who was a high school quarterback, Mr. Football Michigan. Michigan wouldn't even offer him till real late. And then we got Terry McAllister, who really got been getting cooked up since the Penn State game. So those three dudes I do worry about, but everywhere else, I think our unit has like real NFL players, like real like long time NFL dudes. So that takes them up for sure.
You got anything else on the defensive side that you think that we should be taking a look at? Any like X factors or anything like that?
Not exactly. I am curious to see like the grumblings for me have been like Sunny Styles could end up trotting out there. Josh Proctor could end up, trotting out there to be really physical, kind of in run fit and in coverage with these tight ends. But you know how it is, bro. Like, all right, sounds good, but I'll believe it when I see it. But I do know at this point of the season, a guy like Sunny Styles is kind of itching for more. And all the coaches I talk to always talk about, when you're in bowl prep, those true freshmen are now sophomores. They now have a full season under their belt. Then they have an extra month of developmental month, and you're going to see, you find out in that time if they're ready to make that jump or not. And so kind of some rumblings about Sonny Styles might be in the one. Now, I don't know if I want to baptize him with Brock Bowers early, but I wouldn't mind some A-gap blitzes from a guy like that just because he is 6'4", twitched up, like 4'4" runner. Like I think he's going to be kind of a secret weapon, especially if you don't feel like you can trust Tanner, McAllister out there.
That's actually really interesting that you mentioned Sonny Styles because, in Sonny Styles, obviously incoming freshman and a guy that I really wanted to see this year in CJ Hicks, I've been really excited to see what they can do. Now, I don't know if, these playoff games are going to be the time where we're going to see an extended amount of play from them, but, I've been really excited to see what Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks are able to do.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because they keep telling me like what they want to do, like in terms of like recent Ohio State memory, they want to deploy him like Darren Lee, like a guy that can like almost be in the nickel, but also so physical that he's perfect in run fit and blitz stuff, and that's like a big task. But he does feel like Darren Lee, a little bit of Pete Warner, somewhere in between there in terms of like that kind of athlete, and really like he is the alien. Like for about what, like 7 years, like we've been watching these tight ends get more and more athletic, and there's only been one alien, at least in my mind, that's been like hand picked by God to guard them, and it's been Derwin James. And to me, I'm looking at Sonny Styles like okay, like you're a little bit bigger than Derwin, who just had the crazy hit on whatever night that was. It's like, okay, you're a little bit bigger, you're not as fast, but you're really twitched up. Like, can you go take away one of these mismatches? And if you can, all of a sudden the sledding for Georgia that I think is tough gets a lot tougher, if that makes sense. So I am curious to see if he can make a good enough leap, and not just that, not make the leap, but also like earn the coach's trust to kind of put him out there in some big time situations.
Okay. So that's the defense. Obviously, the biggest things I think are going to be stopping the run and somehow finding a way to do that while also containing to some level Brock Bowers. But then obviously, we've got some big plays to watch out for, I think, in this game. So from the defense over to the offense, I think we'd be remiss to not talk about CJ Stroud first when it comes to the offense. So, obviously CJ, he hasn't had a lot to worry me as far as any kind of big game status. When it comes to the big games, CJ is usually pretty good. He doesn't really slack off when it comes to those big moments. But, I'm really excited to see if he's actually going to, get out of the pocket when he needs to. Hopefully we can see some kind of positive yards when maybe something isn't available downfield. What are your thoughts on the probability that we actually see that going into the playoffs? Do you think CJ will start to run a little bit more? I know that's his thing that he doesn't do, but do you think we'll see that in this game?
Man, let me tell you, bro, it is so disrespectful for CJ Stroud to wear number 7 in red and not run. Like, did he never play a game growing up? Did he never watch any Mike Vick? Did he never at any, I mean, even just, did he never look at Justin Fields and be like, damn, like that's really what it is? For CJ, it's interesting because I keep telling myself he's gonna run. Then I'm thinking like he really won't. But here we are. So for me, at least with number 7, here's where I think it's really important. The script, the first 2.5 drives. If Ryan Day puts together the script that I think he can and can give CJ Stroud confidence going into the late second quarter or early second quarter in the dome in Atlanta, it's literally a match made in heaven. Like CJ Stroud in a dome where it's warm, it's feeling like Cali. If he is in rhythm, he is third quarter Steph Curry. Like warm weather CJ with the script tight, I think you could end up looking at a game like for Ohio State to win, like that script has to be really good, and you have to look across Stetson Bennett and be like, we're gonna drag y'all into deep waters. Like we don't think y'all can get to 40 like we can. So our script, we scored you 21, and when that happens, then Ryan Day feels so free to call a really loose game rather than being uptight about things. So the script and the chemistry between not CJ and the receivers, but between Ryan and CJ has to be at an all-time high. And then you can get in the fourth quarter, and then that's when you say, okay, Marvin Harrison Jr., go take over the game with our quarterback and kind of end it.
Okay, so let's talk about the running backs. Obviously, we don't have Trey. Trey is done for the season. And I was hearing news about Mayan not coming back. I don't know what was up with that. There's a little bit of a press conference. He didn't show up for it. It felt a little sick, according to what Chip said. What are your thoughts on him just not showing up, not being there? I mean, is there any concern there? Is there any worry at all? Do you think he going to show up? Is he going to play?
I'm not gonna hold you, bro. I think mine's just fine. I think it was a little bit of a punishment without wanting to embarrass him. I have nothing to go off of. I just know how players get when they go to bowls. Like, bro, they got to Atlanta Monday night. Like, he was under the weather. Man, Maya went out, bro. He went out and kicked it. What do you mean? He went out and had a good yeah, he went out and had a good time in Atlanta. There's no reason he couldn't do media availability because it was via Zoom. Like if he was sick, he would have hopped on the Zoom call sick. I think that they were like, yeah, Mayan, like you know better. Like you're an upperclassman now. You're gonna sit this one out. It's kind of one of those like punishments. I mean, remember when Joey Bosa missed that first game of the year, and they said it was whatever. Like he was out there smoking weed, and so they said, all right, we got to get you with one. He was out there partying. So I really think Mayan got to Atlanta, and he's like a real Dayton type of dude. So he was like, all right, let me go kick it and see what the word is. I think that's what happened. I have nothing to go off of. I didn't talk to anybody, but that's just kind of what I suspect, given how this happened and how quickly the media availability was adjusted. And additionally, they were asked to be up at 8 a.m. So if he overslept a little bit, it's like, oh, okay, like I got it. But I have nothing to go off. I have nothing to go off of. That's just my conspiracy theory if I'm looking at it from a vacuum.
For sure. So then, what do you think will be the impact of having him there? Obviously, we've got Dallin Hayden, we've got Chip Tranum, who's going to play running back as well. But what do you think is going to be the impact of Mayan actually playing running back?
Yeah, so I'm nervous because obviously like they have ridiculous D tackles. Like they're absurd. Like Jalen Carter to me, I would take in the top 2 picks in the draft. Like I don't care what was it like he's that freaky. So
Yeah, Jalen Carter out here is he's picking up grown ass quarterbacks like they're little boys. Like I'm just like,
yeah, with one arm and then laughing as he places them down. Like that's some real like super villain stuff. So I am interested to see because Matt Jones is going to be healthy for the first time all year. I don't know if you know, but he had a really jacked up ankle and he hasn't really been able to practice all year. But I guess he's at a point where it's pretty close to healed. I'm not entirely sure. That's kind of what they're hinting at. But of course, Ryan Day won't give you that availability report till like what 2 hours before the game because he can, just because he's ignorant. But if Matt Jones is healthy, and I feel like they can double Jalen Carter without having to worry too much about the edges because I don't think the edge guys. I don't Georgia's edge guys don't scare me at all, and so I think that I would be comfortable for 4 quarters leaving them one on one with our tackles. So really tempo. Seriously, thing, Jalen Carter does not have good cardio. Like I've watched it. If he's on the field for more than 4 or 5 straight plays, you get him taking 2 plays off. So that's where I think like us always being in 3 receiver personnel is perfect because we don't sub or rotate at all. I think you go fast on the script, especially you can really wear him out. And by quarter 3, you could feel good about running some counter, running some gap scheme, like doing stuff to kind of throw him off. Even we haven't done it all year, but I would love to see a running back draw as well to kind of like get him upfield and take him out of position, because he's a guy that like focuses on being disruptive rather than like gap soundness. So if you're game planning for one guy on the D line, you can tend to take yourself out of comfort zones. But I do think like our running backs can be fresh enough and we can run with tempo to kind of throw him out of off his game.
now there have been times during the Michigan game where I would look and see that it would seem like CJ Stroud had hours back there in the pocket. Do we think that we'll see that sort of same pass protection from the line? going into Georgia? I mean, obviously, they've got good guys on the line, but do we think that that's going to translate the same when it comes to playing Georgia? In other words, do we think that the pass protection will be similar to what we saw against Michigan?
Yeah, I hope so. There's a lot of times where Georgia likes to just rush three and like dare teams to make mistakes because they do have a really good secondary. Malachi Starks, true freshman. I mean, he's a freak show out there. I mean, Keely Ringo. I have my issues with him. I don't think he's a first round player, but I think he's an NFL player. Chris Smith, who leads their team in interceptions. Like they have a good secondary and they play really fast and they key in on tendencies. So yeah, there'll be times where I think CJ will kind of be back there. And additionally, like CJ Stroud has not shown the ability to pick apart teams when he has a lot of time. So he's really struggled like in like some heavy zone concepts, and he kind of flushes out to his right way too often, and it's really frustrating to watch because he doesn't hit home runs when he flushes out. But I don't really worry about the Georgia pass rush. I worry about CJ fleeing if he feels interior pressure. Is kind of where I'm at. I'm expecting them to kind of try to test Keely Ringo's jaw early and often, and then because I mean honestly, bro, like here we go, like throw the whole game plan away. Like Keely Ringo is super suspect. So like if there's any kind of time back there, like I don't even care if it's not even open. Like Keely lines up on the same side every single time. Like put Marv over there and tell Marv to go test his jaw. And it's crazy because like Keely Ringo for a number one corner, like it's absurd. He gets so much safety help that does not get talked about. And they it's funny because Georgia knows that he's a little bit suspect because they have that true freshman over there helping him all the time. LSU was able to throw for a bunch of yards when all they did was they baited Starks with their eyes and said, okay, that guy's gonna get behind Keely Ringo because that boy is stiff. And so they did it time and time again. And then when that wasn't open, Malachi Starks was help over the top. So it was basically acted as a clear out route for a guy like Keyshawn who had a long touchdown. So I'm a firm believer in testing the jaw early and often, and we've seen that from Ryan down the script before with Darren Kendrick, who I thought was also overrated against Clemson in 2020. I was like, all right, we're gonna test his jaw early and often, and what'd you get? You got Garrett Wilson, first drive of the game, over the shoulder, looked back at him, said, "Boy, I'm tearing that ass up." Garrett Wilson went back to the sideline and said, "Coach, like you were right. Like whoever DK's on, he can't hold us." So what they do? They took the deep shot to Chris Olave. They took the deep shot to Jamison Williams. I mean, they attacked him repeatedly because they knew he couldn't cover. So that's kind of where I'm at, and really that's where it comes down to real matchups, and it's easy because like you don't have to try to hunt for Keely Ringo every time on the right side outside the hashes. That's where he lives at. I don't think he has a real jaw. I think it's made of glass, and so I would fully expect kind of him to fall at some point.
I'm actually glad that you mentioned Ringo because that's actually kind of my X factor going into this game is how well Keely Ringo is going to be able to match up with Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously the best wide receiver in the country. So, are they going to give him some sort of safety help? Are they going to let him just be alone and get torched by Marvin Harrison Jr.? Right? I feel like if they give him that safety help, then you're looking at guys like Cade Stover and Ibuka. They're going to start eating. And so I don't know if you want that, but then I don't know if you want Marvin Harrison Jr. on an island with Keely Ringo. So what are your thoughts on that matchup between Keely Ringo and Marvin Harrison Jr.?
No, I agree with that. That's the X factor. We've seen some teams drag Georgia into some deep waters. Mizzou, deep waters. Kent State, deep waters. Shit, Kentucky, deep waters. The difference is, bro, like with those weapons, like our deep waters are shark infested, and so that's where you could run into a problem. I do have Georgia winning the game, but it is interesting because I think that if we get the script right and if Marv does some things that I think he can do against Keely Ringo and CJ Stroud trusts him, I think that we could turn this into a track meet, and that absolutely benefits us.
Do you have a score prediction going into this game?
I'm a big believer in the computer expectancy model. So I have Georgia winning by 5. So if you do that, it'd be like Ohio State 31, or maybe Ohio State 30, Georgia 35 ish, if you believe in that. So that's kind of, I mean, all the Ryan Day losses look the same. Like all the Ryan Day losses are like in the 20s. So maybe 28-32 if I'm kind of rolling with the model or kind of close to that model. So that's where I'm at. But day by day as I watch more and more, I do feel a little bit better. It's really just am I going to get the CJ Stroud that I got in the Rose Bowl last year, or am I going to get the one that we saw against Michigan? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Okay. I think people are underestimating what Ohio State can do. Obviously, the last time we seen them was against Michigan, so you don't have a good taste in your mouth about Ohio State. I understand, but at the same time, like I said before, I don't think Georgia has actually played talent to this level, and so I don't necessarily believe in what Georgia can do all that much either. I know this is going to be a close game, so I do give respect to Georgia in the sense that they're going to keep it close, they're going to get their scores, and they're going to do what they need to do. However, I just feel like it's not going to be enough because they haven't faced anybody like this all year. Therefore, if I had to stick with what Ryan Day was saying about scoring 40, I think we will possibly get 41, Georgia 35. 41-35, Buckeyes win it.
No. I feel you. I'm with that. I'm praying. I'm fingers crossed. I would love that, and I would be a fool on Twitter. Like everybody just would have to block me because I would be a terrible human on Twitter. It would turn upside down.
Well, look, man, Kris, it's been absolutely great having you on. Like I said, I keep doing this with Michigan guys, and I love the chance to actually speak with an actual Buckeye. And we've been watching and seeing the growth of Menace too, so we're huge fans over here, and we look forward to seeing you continue to grow over there.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, tap in with me, whatever. I'll be down to come on. I love it.
Absolutely. And make sure you guys go ahead and like the video. Make sure you comment below and leave your score predictions for the game for the Peach Bowl. And then obviously make sure you subscribe. We'll have plenty of more House Divided content here in the future.